it. I look like I just woke up, which I actually did. Amen. All right, so we're gonna get into it. This is a video, Sean Ryan clips with Mr. Balling being interviewed on behalf of a story he is telling about the OUIJA board. Now, before we get into the story, y'all, because yes, I'm giving my reaction like I was giving my reaction as I was listening to this story, right? And I'm like, okay, yeah. This is right up my alley because have you guys had any situations like this throughout your life? Um yeah, because it's more common and open nowadays, right? But like back in my day, when I was a kid, I remember I had this incident, right? Well, it wasn't an incident, but I think back now, however, like I dodged a bullet. Or is it Jesus helped me dodge a bullet? Okay, so briefly, this is what happened to me. I think I was between the age of 8 and perhaps 12, between 8 and 12, right? And you know how you be in your hood and you be playing with all the neighborhood kids and things of that nature every day, right? So it was a hot summer day. It was me and my sister out. My mom would always send me and my sister out. So she's like a year and a half, between a year and a half, almost 2 years apart from me, older than me, right? So, on this day, follow me, y'all. So, it's one summer hot day, and we over there playing with our Mexican partner. Her name was Gina Ocasio. Shout out to Gina Ocasio if she's still alive. Amen, right? So, she ended up moving to Madeira eventually, as things transpired in her life. But honest say, okay, so I'm remembering back, we was playing, it was me, my sister, we was in the hood, and it was Gina Ocasio, and I remember she had this daddy and she had this mom. The mom was on dope and the dad was alcoholic. He had cirrhosis of the liver, right? So, just and I think she had a little brother named Angel. Yeah, see, it's coming back to me. Gina had a little brother named Angel, right? And so yeah, we was all playing one day, and then one day she had came up to me and my sister, and we was playing, right? And I kind of heard them talking, and then she was like, something about, come on, like, you want to go play the Ouija board? Like, and I just remember her saying that, right? And my sister was down with it, right? So I never saw the board or anything that the girl had, but why my sister, this is what I remember. My sister was like, she pushed me out the way, and she was like, okay, like basically like go ahead and play now because we finna go play with this. And then to this day, me and my sister don't get along. We don't get along. We don't get along. No relationship. It's been rocky. And I'm not saying that's the cause. I'm just remembering based on this story, and I'm just saying, giving you history. Like, me and my sister don't get along to this day. Like, that's crazy. Like, she was always kind of mean and like sneaky, and kind of like she would be doing stuff. Like, and it traumatized me because my mom would always push me out with her. Like, so it's like like I'll just be like getting bullied by my sibling, right? And I had to take it all the time. But she was there for me, and I assumed that she loved me, right? But to this day, we don't get along. All right, so back to the story. This is Mr. Ballin is being interviewed, and he's going to talk about a scene with the Ouija board. Now, with these girls, right? So my whole thing is, welcome in and hello, everybody. Has anybody had a situation growing up, and maybe even now today, maybe you think it's cool, maybe you into the occult, maybe you into the hidden and secret things, do you think that's okay? Do you believe in spirits following you? Because they do. Do you know that you're entering into another realm illegally. So there's always consequences because you're entering or you're allowing a doorway to open. You understand? And yeah, it get tricky like that, right? Because it's things that we cannot see, but it's living, you know. So, okay, that's neither here nor there. Hello, we're gonna get into it right now. All right, so like I said, you guys already know the background, and I'm just, being transparent with you all before we get into the video. Have you guys had any situations like that? Because a lot of you guys think that this stuff is cool, and that's your prerogative, right? I'm just asking, has any of you guys had any type of Ouija experiences? Do you know people that play with that thing? And do you believe that it's real? And do you believe that it carries power, if you play with it? Okay? So, yeah, comment below. Okay, so here we go. Here we go, folks. Here we go.
They're walking up the stairs, and right on the wall, on the basement steps, written in red is, "I'm in your closet, come find me." Oh, shit, what are you guys doing? And they're like, "Oh, you wouldn't believe it, Dad. It's Mom. We were talking to Mom. We know it's her. It has to be her." But Tina grabs a knife off the kitchen counter, and she's like, "We have to go into the basement. We got to see what's down there. Maybe our seance worked, but we didn't bring Mom's spirit into the house. Maybe we brought something malevolent." All right, so in 1986, there's this family,
Is this real?
this is totally real.
This is a legit.
Totally real. Yes.
Okay.
There's this guy named Frank, and he's got two daughters. He has an older daughter. This is 1986. This is in Pepperell, Massachusetts. So I think it's Western Mass. He's got two daughters. He's got a 15-year-old daughter named Tina and a 9-year-old daughter named Karen. And this is in, again, the fall.
See, hold on. I just want to spend 1 second. You see already a 15-year-old and then a 9-year-old, but they're siblings. Now it's two girls. And he gonna get into the story, but that's why I'm saying for this part of the story, it bring me right back to my childhood. Okay, it was me and my sister. We in the hood, y'all, we playing. And then a friend approached us, and she approached us openly like, "Hey, you want to play?" But then my sister, her being sneaky, she was like, kind of like, shh, like to the friend, like, "Okay, basically, yeah, but she got to go home or she got to go play." And that's what I'm saying. So I know they went to go play it. Let's continue.
Of 86, and around this time frame, this family, the Bowens family, they had suffered this really awful loss. So Frank's wife and the two daughters' mother had passed away pretty unexpectedly from cancer. So she came on suddenly, she passed away, and it was this horrible thing. And so this has happened within a few months of when the story picks up in the fall of 86. However, the part of the dynamic here is that the wife, the mother, had been, a working mom, and her income had been meaningful to the household. So the blue collar family, Frank and his wife's income were how they floated the family. And so when she passed, not only is there, all this grief in the household, of course, but there's also like a practical issue. Frank now was 50% of the income is gone, and he needs to find a way to provide for his family. And so immediate aftermath of her passing, Frank began taking all these extra shifts at work just to make ends meet. Just sort of what he had to do. But as a product of that was that Tina and Karen, who were sort of just old enough for this to be okay, they, as they're dealing with this incredible grief of losing their mom, who they were very close with, they began finding themselves alone quite a bit at their house, just alone, putting themselves to bed while their dad is out, taking late shifts at work. But they accepted this, it is what it is. Their dad loves them, and he's just trying to do the right thing for the family. So with that as the backdrop, there was this night where Frank was out at doing one of these late shifts. This is again sometime.
And hold on. Too, my mom used to always leave me at home in this big ASS house, you all, with my sister. And my sister's whole thing was scary movies. I just put some eye drops in my eye. But like literally scary movies, y'all. So I'd be in this big old house with my sister. sitting on this plaid, like we had like this plaid kind of couch in one of these living rooms, and it's dark, y'all. I mean, this house is big,
It's
y'all.
11 o'clock.
This house is so big that we lived in. When I was a kid, hold on, y'all. Oh yeah, when I was a kid, right? That we also had another little, how do you say it? Not a shack, but like another little house in our backyard. So my whole thing is, it's like my mom ain't even home, and my sister watching Nightmare on Elm Street, and I would be scared out. I would be like glued to her on the couch the whole. Let's continue.
I'm in like September of 86, and the girls are home. And the girls, the death of their mom is so new in some ways that they haven't quite moved to the point of acceptance.
Of course.
They still almost feel like mom's gonna come around the corner. Like it just feels unreal that she's gone. And they just felt desperately that they just wanted to have one more interaction with their mom. It's like they felt it in their bones. They just missed her so badly. And so with their dad gone for the night, the older girl, Tina, the 15-year-old, she asked the younger girl, Karen, hey, do you want to get the Ouija board out and try to contact mom?
So my whole thing is, number one question, where did the board come from? How did it get in the house? That's two questions. And who introduced her to this? That's three. Let's continue.
For those who don't know what a Ouija board is,
Never a good idea.
yeah, a Ouija board, it looks sort of like just a rectangular game board, and it has A through Z on it, A, B, C, D, all the letters of the alphabet. It has 0, up to 9, all the digits. And you put this, it's called a planchette. It's like this little dial that has felt tips, 3 prongs, felt tips that it sits on. And it's got a little viewfinder on the top of it that you can look through. It's like a little looking glass down onto the board. And when you use the Ouija board, if you believe that this thing works, you and whoever else, let's take Tina and Karen in this instance, they would rest their fingertips. They'd typically sit on opposite sides of the board. They'd rest their fingertips on the edge of this planchette. And the idea is you don't move the planchette at all. You just like rest your fingers on the planchette. And if there's, spirits in the room, the idea is...
Hey, but he's missing one thing. The whole object is your it's like your intent, like you're opening up yourself to be optimistic, intent, like you want to see something from some place else. So my whole thing is, this is what the demons use. They can go on that, like they can connect with that, y'all, okay, because it's an agreement, okay. Boy,
they will, you ask a question with your fingers. Tina or Karen asks a question, hey, mom, are you here? Their fingers are on the planchette. And if there's a spirit in the room, the idea is they will travel through your body and they'll manipulate your fingertips and they'll move the planchette around. Part of the reason why Ouija boards have become so popular is it's so easy. If there's a group...
You become a willing vessel. You become a channel. You allow yourself to be channeled. Okay?
Of you to be the one person that sort of subtly moves the planchette and give the impression that like there's a ghost in the room. So it is what it is. If you believe it or you don't, people say that, Ouija boards are a way to talk to the dead.
What do you believe?
I don't know. I don't know if the Ouija board works. I think that there is...
You tried one?
Oh, he's
I have
a
tried.
skeptic.
Yeah, and
Oh, shit. Where'd you try it?
So we had one growing up. My sisters and I would always get out the
everybody
Ouija
when they
board.
was
And
little.
now that I'm thinking about it, that's kind of weird. Like little... Me and my sisters, as the young children, are like having seances in our basement. So actually, I'm open to it. I'm open to it. So anyways, these two, they're like, okay, we want to try to contact mom. And so they get their Ouija board and their little planchette and they go down into the basement and they literally set up like a seance. The basement is just like this blank slab basement. There's like a washer dryer. There's a couple of tools on a shelf, but it's like a blank, concrete slab basement.
How does she know how to do that?
And they put their Ouija board down. They light some candles and they sit down and They put their fingers on the planchette and they begin asking questions, like sort of to the room, hey, mom, or if you're in here, give us a sign, and they look at the board and they're hoping it's going to move, but, nothing happens. And over the course of the next hour, these girls tried every combination of question that they could ask, to try to inspire the spirit of their mother to come in here and talk to them. But no matter what they did, they couldn't get the planchette to move. And in some ways, it was sort of devastating. They're grieving the loss of their mom. They haven't really come to terms with it. And this felt like hope. Mom's going to come through. We know it. She loves us, but nothing happens. And so they end up, packaging up the Ouija board, and they go back upstairs and they go up to the second floor where their bedrooms are. And by this point, their dad, Frank, he's still at work. He's going to be out, past the time they would go to bed. And Tina's the sort of older, more responsible one, and she's okay. We need to go to bed. And so the two, they go up to the second floor. They get ready for bed, and they go to their respective bedrooms. And so they get in their beds. The lights are off. The house is quiet, and they try.
Hold on. I just want to say something, though, because I can't hold it, okay? Because I just got a comment. As I'm thinking about this, I'm like, I'm getting live wire. See how they entered into a realm. That was a portal. So what I'm trying to say, I'm also getting conduit. It's like they left their... Have you ever seen those things on the 4th of July when you light them and then you can hold them? What you call them? Little sparkly things. You can hold them in your hand. But like they was like a live wire in the spiritual realm. And they was like a conduit. And my whole thing is, since they didn't know what they was doing and what they was playing with and how it connected to the universe, it's like they thought they was done. See how they ready to go to bed? Like we in our world, right? And the kids, they ready to go to bed. So they're like, oh, it's bedtime, because we got time, right? It's only 24 hours in our day, right? But in the spiritual realm, it's no time. So my whole thing is, they left that open. Like they left that open. You guys understand? They left that open.
Sleep. But after maybe only 20 or 30 minutes of laying in bed, they're both still awake, but they aren't aware of the other. They're in different rooms, but they're both awake. There's this tapping noise that begins to start in the house. And, at first it was sort of subtle, and both girls would report hearing it, but it wasn't clear if the tapping noise was, just a house sound. Houses make noises. Is it something outside? Is it the wind? Whatever it was. But more than that, it was kind of hard to pinpoint if it was coming from the floor they were on, the first floor, even the basement. Was it outside? It just sort of felt like this almost omnipresent tapping sound. And it wasn't...
And see how these spirits play with you?
Rhythmic. It wasn't like consistent. It was sort of sporadic, but it was constant. So there's a tapping sound that's sort of just irregular, but constant. And so it caught their ear. And so Tina, the older one, she sort of is, just doing her best to forget about it and just try to go to bed. But Karen, the younger one, the 9-year-old, she can't sleep. She starts feeling worried about this tapping sound. They've just done a seance in the basement, and now...
And think about it, because the youngest one is the purest one. You understand? The purest one. Even though they're both pure, they're 15 and 9, but you understand there's like laws and stuff in the spiritual realm. So you understand that baby's mind is not open yet. It's still it's fresh, it's new, it's alive, it's just open, right?
There's tapping in the house. She's a kid, it's scary. And so she leaves her bedroom and she goes, right over to the next room where Tina is.
And entities, they feed on fear, you know that.
And Tina's in bed, and Karen goes in and she's like, hey, Tina, do you hear the tapping sound, in the house? And Tina's like, yeah, don't worry about it. Like, it's no big deal. But the two, they're just like sitting there, and Tina's like trying to reassure Karen, but the tapping, it sort of begins to intensify a little bit. And Tina, she has this almost epiphany. And she's like, as she's trying to tell Karen not to worry about it, the tapping is getting louder. And she's like, what if that's Mom? We were just trying to contact her. What if the seance worked? What if Mom did hear us. Maybe she's here. Maybe she's in the house. Maybe she's trying to get in touch with us. Maybe her tapping is her trying to signal us in some way. And suddenly that hope that was dashed as their Ouija board session, their seance hadn't worked, it's all back now. They're suddenly riveted with this idea that the sounds they're hearing could be their mom, who they just want their mom back so bad that they're prepared to believe anything at this point. Like, oh my God, it's mom. And so Tina and Karen, they get out of the bed and they walk into the hallway. Now, to this point, they still can't quite tell where the tapping is coming from, but by the time they got into the hallway, it's clear it's not coming from the floor they're on. It's coming from somewhere downstairs. And so they go into the dark stairwell in the second floor hallway, and they're looking down into the stairwell, I should say, that kind of banks around down to the first floor. And all they can hear is just this periodic tapping, and it's coming from somewhere downstairs. And the two girls are standing at the top of the stairs, like not really sure what to do. And Tina, the older one, just suddenly goes,
and they don't know to say, in the name of Jesus, I command you to go, or get out my house, or they don't know the authority that they have. So I'm saying they're children. Wow. Now they're receiving, what's it, little poltergeist or paranormal in their home because they didn't open this up. And this just goes back to, I don't think the father could have foresaw this situation, but like, you got to kind of teach your kids young, like, because we was lied to, and, things ain't what they seem. Things are not innocent. We know that we are not alone, that there's things, here it's a whole invisible thing going on, right? So my whole thing is like, wow, this is crazy, but where did she get that Ouija board from? That's my whole thing. That's what set off everything, y'all. Where did she get that board from?
hey, Mom, is that you? The tapping stops for a second, and then they hear a rhythmic, and then there's silence again.
Oh, shit.
So there's a clear response. And the girls, they think at first that it's something that's, maybe it's coincidence. It can't be this immediate. It can't actually really be her. And so Tina again says, Mom, really? Is that you? And this time even louder. There's 3 taps that come back from somewhere downstairs. Clearly, someone in the house, and they're interacting with the girls, and their dad's not home.
You had a very interesting client, I think, in 2017.
Let me fast forward through this.
The girl, this is a good thing. It's Mom. This is a good thing. We're excited about this. To most children, this would be horrifying, but for them, in this part of their lives, this was confirmation that their mom is here. And it gave them an enormous amount of courage and happiness, frankly. And they're like, let's go down. Let's go downstairs and see what's going on. Let's see if we can, maybe Mom's down there. Who knows, right? Let's go down there. And
nah,
so
she done came back from the dead, y'all.
They're asking more questions, and they're starting to sense that the tapping, which is louder now, they can kind of tell that it's not somewhere on the first floor. It actually sounds like it's coming from the basement, potentially. There's a door in their kitchen on the first floor that leads down to the basement, and it sort of sounds like the tapping there, maybe even coming on the backside of that door. But they're going down the stairs and they're firing off more questions, like, Mom, like the questions they're asking are all over the place, but they're asking these questions, and each time they're getting that 3 taps in response, like they're sure it's Mom. They get to the kitchen, and now they've pinpointed the tapping is definitely coming from the basement. The door is shut to the basement. They go to the door, they open up the basement door, and they're looking down into like this stereotypically, terrifying base. It's pitch black. It's wooden, creaky stairs. They can't see anything down there. And despite how confident they were that like, this is Mom, this is where they drew the line. They're not prepared to go all the way into the basement where it's like, that's kind of horror movie territory. But they stood at the top of the stairs. And for an hour, they asked their mother questions. In their mind, they're talking to their mom. They're speaking into the basement, and they're asking all sorts of questions. Do you miss us? Tap, tap, tap. Sometimes they'd get like 4 or 5 taps, and they began to think that maybe that meant no, and 3 meant yes. But they had this whole thing where they're like, it's Mom. It worked. The seance worked. But after an hour, their dad's still not home. They've had this unbelievable experience that they've chalked up to their mom. But then it just kind of stops. There's no more tapping. No matter what questions they ask, it just sort of stops. And the girls, they stayed awake, because they're sort of jazzed up by what's happened here. And around the time that the tapping has stopped, there's no more responses. Frank, their dad, comes home. And he's surprised to see his kids awake in the kitchen. And he's like, what are you guys doing? And they're like, oh, you wouldn't believe it, Dad. It's Mom. We got the Ouija board out. We had a seance. They kind of explain the whole thing that happened, but they're so excited about it. And they're like, Dad, it's Mom. We were talking to Mom. We know it's her. It has to be her. And now Frank also is in the process of going through what is this unbelievably bad situation for him. He's lost his wife. He has to work all these extra shifts. He can't be around his daughters. He's worried about his kids. And he's seeing his kids light up and be so excited at this idea that they're talking to their mom, that even though he does not think for a second that there's truth to what he's telling him. He doesn't think that there was tapping. He doesn't think their mom was in the house. He thinks that these are kids who've lost their mother, and they've come up with some coping mechanism, which is hearing, random house tapping sounds, and they've convinced themselves it's their mother.
Hold on, I want to stop and say, so that just tells you too, also people's upbringing or their belief system or their faith, or maybe they wasn't taught, or maybe they refuse, or whatever the case is, but they're unknowledgeable of what not to do and what to do, like regarding just spirits in general, whatever faith that you claim, even though Jesus Christ is Lord. But I'm just trying to say, like, people don't even know any better. Like, because look how he's a parent. He got his kids there. Okay, this is going on. They saying they hearing from their dead mom because the mom just passed. He got to work a lot. Okay, but so what? Like, he doesn't know any better to be like, no, this is like witchcraft. Like, he's not. He thinks everything is okay. Like, he's down with it too. So what I'm trying to say is that gives the enemy more of a foothold, because those are children. Like, entities, they go after the kids because it's the purest, right? So let's continue. I was just thinking, like, I'm just like he don't even know no better either. Like, he could have kind of like stopped that, because the kids would have listened to the father. The father would be like, no, like, this is not good. This is gonna hurt you, or this is what this is. Like, it wasn't none of that. It was like, okay, well. Until they all found out, right?
And so without any hesitation, he just goes, I bet that was your mom. That's wonderful. She's looking out for you. She'll always be looking out for you. Your mom she's here with you now. She'll always be here with you. Your mom loves you. And the girls are so pleased.
Oh, see?
They run up to bed.
Getting the assurance.
So excited to, go tell their friends the next day. So they go to bed, and Frank, frankly, doesn't think much of it. He just is like, my kids are coping with a terrible tragedy, and if they want to do that, that seems harmless enough. So he goes to bed.
Hold on, guys. Let me get to the commercial. Apologize. They threw a wrench. 3, 2, 1.
The tapping sounds would continue, except they would only be heard by the girls. Frank would never hear the tapping sound. The girls would, they'd hear it coming from the basement. They'd call their dad. He'd listen, and they wouldn't. There'd be no more taps. They would disappear when Frank showed up.
Now, come on, Daddy.
But oddly enough, the tapping was no longer just happening at night and just in the basement. The tapping was.
Okay, hold on. I'm sorry, y'all, but I'm just gotta ask these questions. Would y'all be spooked? Would y'all be like, because you in a big house, you've been living in the house, okay? He telling the story. He didn't say that they just moved there. They've been living there. Okay, you ain't been hearing no taps anytime before when Mom was alive with you all in the house. Okay, now Mom done died. Okay, everybody is kind of crazy. Spirits and vibrations is low. I'm talking within them. So the atmosphere is like, it's negative, right? So what I'm trying to say is that's a breathing ground for entities, because they like negativity, anything that is low, the vibration, right? The electricity, like they feeding off that. And my whole thing is the kids open the door, and I'm just like, whatever. Okay.
Sort of happening all over the house. It would happen outside the front door. It was in the kitchen. It was in the girls' bedrooms. It was everywhere. It was like the tapping it was always that tap, tap, tap when they were talking to it, but it was like all over the house. But again, every time they'd hear it, Frank, wouldn't be privy to it. He couldn't hear it. Frank's still telling himself that this is a relatively healthy coping mechanism, that it's not that big of a deal.
Yes, it is, Frank. See, don't just leave. See. See how we tell ourselves, oh, that's not what we know that is. That's not what we think that it is. Oh, that's not what we know that it is. Yeah, I said it right. I had to think about it too, right? Okay. Coffee, just waking up, right? But you guys understand what I'm trying to say. Like, why you don't believe yourself? Why you don't believe your first mind? Why you brushing it off? Like, it's not what you think it is, or know it to be what it is. You know, some ain't right. Some is reaching out to your children from somewhere, and now you is getting you kind of witnesses in it too, but you brushing it off. Like, why do people do that? Is that a certain race, or I don't know. I assume black folks do it too. Like, it's just ignorance, right? Okay.
But what ended up happening after about 3 days is the girls, they had convinced themselves that this is mom, right? This is a good thing. Well, by the third day, post-seance, when the tapping is happening a lot, the tapping had sort of migrated primarily to the girls' bedrooms. And it was also happening mostly at night now. So by the third day, it's sort of like all the tapping is happening in their bedrooms. And it's namely under their bed. Like, they would hear the sound underneath their bed. And for the girls, they began to wonder why their mom would do that, because it just sort of feels like almost stereotypically terrifying for a kid, something under your bed. And they began to get this feeling that maybe this isn't mom. Maybe our seance worked, but we didn't bring mom's spirit into the house. Maybe we brought something malevolent or just something other. We don't know. And so they're starting to question if this is really a good thing or not. And that's what Frank picked up on. It's been a few days. Frank picks up on that. The girls no longer view this as a good thing, and it's disrupting their sleep. And they would hear the tapping in the bed, and Frank would come into the room. There'd be nothing there. He had no explanation, but the girls are really spooked.
See, because now since the kids are going against the spirit, like they not welcome, I can't even say the word, but you guys know what I'm trying to say. Now, since the kids are rejecting the spirit, like internally, like the spirit, no. And so now look what the spirit do. The spirit is turning on everybody. You get what I'm trying to say? Now it's acting up. Because it's like, okay, you own to me and you don't like me or you don't welcome me. I'm not going to be able to host you. So, okay, I'm going to do what a demonic spirit do. Okay. And this is the effects.
And so it was at this point that Frank began taking a harder stance with this girl. So around the third night, he just said, look, I know you're going through it right now, and I understand that you're dealing with a lot with your mom, but this isn't okay. This, whatever you guys believe you're hearing with this tapping sound, I'm telling you, you have nothing to worry about in this house, but it's not happening. Okay, you're working yourself up over nothing, and you need to stop it. And if you can't, I understand, but we're going to have to seek out professional help, like grief counseling or something, because it's not healthy for you all to be living in fear of a ghost.
We would have got a butt whooping. I'm gonna just tell you what happened to me when I was little too. When I was little, like I said, the same old big old house that we lived in forever. When I was a kid, I fell down the stairs and broke a bone in my foot when I was little. In that house. What else happened to me in that house? Okay, well, I know that. But anyway, I used to have nightmares real bad, right? And I used to be thinking I'd be seeing stuff, like things coming like to the door. Like, I'd be sleeping in my room and I think I'd be seeing stuff. Like, I was just scared, like I was seeing something. So long story short, was I? Like, because my mom used to always put me back in the bed. Like, she would march me back. Well, she wouldn't even march me back. She'd be like, go back to bed. Like I said, our house was big. So it was like this long hallway from her room to back to my room. And it was never no comfort. It was like, okay, I'm traumatized because I'm seeing stuff. And then you traumatizing me more because you just sending me back to the room scared again. So it's like I'm traumatized. Okay.
In your house that, it's just not okay. The girls are furious because they believed up until the third night that their dad accepted that the taps were real and that maybe it was their mom. And now he's sort of come out and been like, I don't believe you, and, forget about it or else you're going to go to therapy. Mm-hmm. And so it sparked like real issues between the daughters and the dad. The dad's really trying to do his best, but there's real tension here. So following this confrontation, if you will, between Frank and his daughters, or whatever you want to call it, the tension between them remained. And for the girls, they felt like they didn't have their dad's support anymore. And they started to really be fearful of even being in their house. Like they didn't even want to be home anymore. You know, it's like, it's terrifying when you're there. You hear these tapping sounds. And so over the next several days, so now we're looking at like, you know, a week after the seance. So about a week later, the girls are finding every excuse to sleep over at friend's house and just be out of their house. And, you know, they're kind of jarring with their dad about like, did the tapping sounds happen or not? But when they're home, they hear the tapping sounds. And so fast forward about a week post seance. And on this particular night, the girls didn't have a place to go. They didn't have a friend's house to crash at. Their dad was out working a late shift. And so they were there in their home that night. There's nothing they could do about it. They had to go to bed and just deal with it. And the tapping is happening, you know, pretty consistently at this point. Not literally at this point, but it's happening all the time. And so they're just like, okay, we just got to get through the night, you know, whatever.
Everyone keeps asking me how.
Hold on, guys. Okay, let's get through this commercial. 3, 2, 1. Thank you.
Girls they're having their dinner in the kitchen. Their dad is at work. And at a certain point, the tapping starts, and it's coming from the basement. It's not the 3 rhythmic tappings. It's just this kind of periodic tapping that sort of was the precursor to they could ask questions and get those rapid responses. And Tina looks over at Karen and she's like, you know, Dad doesn't believe us. And, you know, the last week, every time this would happen, like he would never hear it. He doesn't believe us. Like we have to look into this. Like he's not going to look into this. We have to. And so there's active tapping in the basement. The door to the basement's right off the kitchen. And Karen is starting to get the sense that Tina's saying, we need to go into the basement right now and go look. Because they hadn't done that yet. They had never really actually investigated the sound.
Would you have gone down there?
Yeah.
Would you really?
As a child? No. No. I'm sorry. As an adult, me now? Yes. Yeah. As a child then? No way. No way.
I'd probably send my wife down.
You're getting there. And so Tina, you know, is looking at Karen, who doesn't want to do this, but Tina grabs a knife off the kitchen counter and she's like, we have to go into the basement. We got to see what's down there. And Karen, she doesn't want to be up here alone. And so she's trying to tell Tina, like, no, we can't go down there. But she's like, fine. And so she gets behind Tina and Tina goes over to the door and the tapping's happening downstairs. And they open up the basement door and the tapping stops right away. As soon as the door opens, the tapping stops. It was going all up until that point. Tapping stops. And down the stairs, the girls go. They walk down into the basement. And the light in the basement was one of those pull string lights that you have to get to in the basement. And so it's dark in the basement. They're like wandering through this dark basement to get to the pull string. They get to the pull string, they pull it, and they're both like totally on edge. And they're looking around, and they would later say, you know, on some level, we were like, there's got to be some logical explanation. Like, for example, a raccoon like got into the house. Wouldn't explain the responses we're getting with tapping sounds, but as a human being, we will go to great lengths to convince ourselves that we are okay in moments of crisis. A lot of times before you kind of cross the threshold into, oh my God, this is a horrible crisis, your brain was like, no, everything's fine. Everything's good. Like, it's just a raccoon. And they're kind of hoping for that. But they get down there, they pull the light, and, you know, Tina's got her knife and Karen's like tucked up behind her. And they're looking around the basement. And I told you before, there's like nothing in the basement. There's like a washer and dryer. There's a wood shelf, like a shelf with some tools on it over here. But there's not even storage down there. It's just like this vacant open space. There's nowhere to hide. And there's nothing down there. It is an utterly vacant space.
There's got to be a hole in the floor or something.
Well, they looked all around the basement and there's nothing there. They're looking for where a raccoon could have gotten in. But it's like, as they're looking, it's dawning on them that there isn't a clear answer here. We've definitely heard the tapping. Dad hasn't. We have.
It is a clear answer because when we was little, y'all, what did we watch? Didn't we watch Ghostbusters? So the first thing that would have came in, we watched Thriller, Michael Jackson. And then what else we used to watch? I'm just saying, like Casper the Friendly Ghost. Like, I would have been like, Ghost. All right, wouldn't you have? I would have been like, Ghost.
Here at the source of the tapping in many ways, and there's nothing. And they've sort of mentally shifted to it could be malevolent. And so they're having this big fear response. They're like, okay, we can't be down here. This is just horrifying. And so they turn and begin going back upstairs. And as they're walking up, they notice there's writing on the inside of the stairwell wall leading up to the first floor. They're walking up the stairs, and right on the wall, on the basement steps, written in red is, "I'm in your closet. Come find me."
Oh, shit. No matter where you're watching the Sean Ryan show
Right. So make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe for more videos like this at Morona Prophecy 597. And just before I depart, yeah, so spirits don't go away unless you tell them to go away. So my whole thing is, how many people really know what to do? But it's by the name, in the name, by the blood of Jesus Christ. So my whole thing is, I don't know. Like, I don't know. How many guys had situations like this with the OUIJA board? Like I said. And then I remember too, let me fast forward before I get out of here. The story with me and my sister, right? When in our older years, like, you know, our adult years, I did ask her one time, like over the phone, I was like, remember that time that you played with that OUIJA board? And I think I said, did you renounce that? And she never said nothing. Like, it's like, it was like a taboo question. Like, she never responded or said anything. So my whole thing is, I don't know. All right, so, all right. I'll be back. I'm just thinking like, wow, we got enough to deal with, let alone some things attached to you that you can't see that distort your mind and your actions and, you know, your destiny, your soul. All right. So peace. Subscribe. All right. I'm going to be back.